order to find it, I had one that I would like to talk, suggest a change. And perhaps you would be so kind as to give yours.
Okay.
Because I thought I could turn right to it. But I can't.
On page 11, there was a, right now, page 11.
Do you want to say?
On page 8, at the top of the page, what it says, we continue from page 7, it says, Mr. Trudell stated that FinCom could ask to see now, if we could see how detail pay is done.
Does Mr. Heath concur?
Under section 9, liaison reports to the planning council.
Yes.
We've got one where it says, if he doesn't feel any guidance has been discussed by FinCom, I think that would be counted. I'll give you the whole thing. And then on page 6, we had talked about the parking meter fund. And Mr. Tooley was kind enough to quote chapter and verse what was involved in that legislative act for dispersing money. And I'd like to get it into the meetings because you're probably the only one that can say that.
Yeah, I don't have it. That's in the other book. So, I mean, I can't give it to you chapter and verse, but it does state that CEC, Community Events Committee, gets 70% of the hotel motel tax, okay, and 40% to be on security. Or it says, I believe it doesn't say on security, it just says parking meter fund.
Got that. Okay, that's fine. I wanted that in the minutes because you keep stumbling over this, and I know it comes along now. Saying to do it.
I cannot find it, so I will withdraw my. Apologize.
Are there any other changes to the minutes that are presented? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes of the previous meeting as amended. All those, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstains. So it's 6. Town administrator's report comes irrelevant because he's not here. Moving on to town meeting matters warrant articles. You all have a copy of the latest version of the warrant articles that were finalized, I believe, last night. You also got it by email. Does anyone at this point have any comments on them?
Pardon me?
Any comments on this warrant article?
On Article 1, it's
All right, I'll take it in order. You have to know that there is no explanation to these warrant articles. Chairman of the Finance Committee has made that noted to the financial analyst, Derek, that you really can't proceed without these explanations to these warrant articles. So that's a bit of a problem.
Still any questions?
I have.
Yep.
This issue of $91,000 for the school buses, as I think we all know by now, or should know, is really at least $2 million expenditure by the town, potential expenditure by the town over a 3-year period of time, and doesn't even begin to get to the real needs. If we go beyond 20 buses, we got up to the 35 that are apparently needed, or 30-some. We're looking at an expenditure perhaps of, over a 5-year period of time, somewhere in the neighborhood of perhaps $3 to $4 million. And $91,000 is a large sum. Or a large amount, I agree with that. But it pales in importance before the total bill. My objection has been, my objection still is, and will be going into the future, that we're not given the full picture. We're just given partial information. And this is another example of it. And I just object to it. I really do. Maybe nobody else does, but I do.
We're talking on the school buses in Article 1 at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
I think last meeting, we addressed that there needs to be much more detail put into that article so people can understand the full impact of it. I think, is that what you're basically?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And that was discussed. So before they print these articles, I would hope they would do that. And if they don't do that, you know, to me, that's not the right thing to do. We have to keep the people informed. It has to be transparent, and the best way to do that is to give them all the information. And that's a lot of money.
As your liaison to capital planning, I might have a comment in that area.
Well,
I'll wait till everybody's.
I'll just sit right here. Listen to that.
Furthermore, Mr. Chairman, if I'm reading this correctly, and perhaps I'm not, D, E, and G are all based on 3-year leases. And yet, D and E, they've put in 6 months of payments. And G, if I'm reading this right, they put in 12 months of payments. And unless I'm missing something totally, I can't figure out why you would put down half a year's payments for one item of an article and a full year's for another one. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Or to allow this. Because you are correct, you have put down 6 months. And if you looked at that and said, what the cost going to be, and it turns out to be a 3-year lease, you figure for the transport vehicle, that's 7 over 3 years, there are 60,000 plus 4,264,000, and plus whatever the final buy is on that. And item E is the supervisor's vehicle, for which we have 3 or 4. I have to wonder how many we need.
Well, I think so far none of us have really talked to whether these are good things to be purchasing or not. It's really that the article is extremely unclear and very misleading.
To that point, as I said last meeting, capital planning did not get these till last Thursday morning. So, as a member of FinCom, I first saw it on Wednesday night. We did have a meeting, we did cover that at our capital planning meeting. But where it says it's inserted by the Board of Selectmen for requested capital planning, that is not a correct statement. It was inserted by town administrator, because all we do is recommend to the town administrator on a 5-year plan. Now, there's been no discussion on these with him as part of capital plan. So this is the town administrator's take of what he wants for capital plan. That's great.
May I ask you, then has the capital planning committee, or is the capital planning committee in favor of this article or not? And has it expressed itself?
Capital plan has had some discussions relevant to this article. We have not taken a position on it yet because it consumed quite a bit of time trying to find out what was into the article. I would think that our next capital plan meeting, we will come out, I would say, in May to that particular issue, but at this point, we have not. To your question, Mr. Paulson, on school buses. If you look out 3 years, because the current plan is for possibly 7 buses, hopefully the town administrator, the school superintendent can come up with some funds to pick up an additional 3 buses, which would get us up to 10 leased buses. The leases at $91,000 are a 3-year lease, and then at the end of that, you buy them out at $50,000 each. Now, if you do the math on that, by the 3rd year, you were leased $623,000 worth of leases. And then $273,000 at the end of the 3rd year. And going into the 4th year, you'll have the 3 leases of 7 buses each, plus $350,000 buyout for the first lease that was there. So it brings you up to around $623,000 in lease money.
Lease and buyout.
Yes, and that's a pretty staggering sum when we look at those numbers. I know that I made a comment to the attending Board of Selectmen members, capital planning, and my comment was that there's been talk of going out to reverse bids, and nothing has happened, and that capital planning cannot exert any more influence on the process, and it comes to the Board of Selectmen if they want to become involved and set timelines. So I can't answer where that comment went. I know the chair of the Board of Selectmen is there. So, because capital planning, we plan, and we work with the town administrator.
I know that there has been some thought that an operating lease might be a way of solving the problem. And I know there's been some work on analysis of this. Has the capital planning committee reached any sort of conclusion on that?
The answer to that would be no, but I don't know. Does the chair of the capital planning have anything to say?
I'm sorry, he
was asking if there was an analysis of the operational cost of leasing the buses. Had we done it?
I haven't done a full one. Basically did one based on 3 years and 6 years with the numbers, but we're looking also, we have to really plug in because the bottom line is the bus system itself. They have 32 buses that should be replaced. They came back and said they had 20 that, I should say 32 that need to be replaced, but 20 that should be replaced. They're only going to be able to replace 10 out of those 20 in the first year. They may try and go in the spring and then again in the fall, kind of information to 7 to accelerate the program. But the real problem is the number is really 48 buses. Our school system runs on 48 buses, not 32. 6 out of the current 48 buses are what we call the junkyard. The reason they have 48 is they have to have 6 backup in case buses break down or fail, whatever in their program. So when you look at the numbers, you got to go back and analyze it based on a 48 bus system because the original bid that the school put out, and we try to compare, the bid versus our cost that the school department said. Their bid went out for 48 buses this past year, either 2010 or 2011 buses. And that's what the bid came back at, $2.5 million. The school department gave us a fee of 1.5 to run their system, but of course, there's no buses, there's no depreciation of buses anywhere. Bus comes in, it's more, it's municipal county. So we take all the costs and we take the revolving fund to go cover the first summer costs of the transportation system. We came up with, I'm gonna say, $100,000 to $200,000 between the two. The school department, I think at the end, agreed that the only advantage for running buses was they had the ability to move buses where they needed to be in a more expedient time. So that's the problem. And the bottom line is this: does the school department want to be in the transportation business or the education business? It's kind of a problem for them because no matter what they do, the school superintendent has to have the town administrator to put the request in for what it is. They don't have any control over this. Unless they want to have some funds that they may need to do it, it still goes through capital planning, that's okay. But there's no way to guarantee that come this spring or this coming fall, a year from now, whether or not the buses become available for them to buy again. And they do need a set number of buses. So the whole program is kind of broken. I believe our initial response was not to vote on as we get, is that they should really consider maybe they go out and do the whole program somewhere else, at least the whole thing, or have someone else do it. And that's where we left it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One other thing that you'll notice that there is a item F, an EMS ambulance rebuild that has been added. Capital Planning Committee was uncomfortable with this not being in there. If the town administrator is successful in getting an ambulance, that's good, but he isn't. I didn't want another February surprise about seeing a brand new ambulance that some $70,000 money. And so we suggested that they put in an ambulance rebuild. So even if we get one, we need to send one out to get a rebuild because we're in tough shape on the ambulances. I don't care, 1999, 2001, 2006, is it? 2005. 1999 is so the next possible rebuild is 2001. That's at least 10 years old. It's a little older than we want to get into on rebuilds, but be that as it may. That item was added since the last time we looked at the warrant articles last week.
You might also note that quite a few of these figures, a couple of them have changed. Just going back to the school bus, and I'll just make it simple as I can. Before we buy anything, before we do anything, would it make sense to have a plan? I mean, because if we go out and do a capital lease for 7 buses, and then turn around next year and decide we're going to go into an operating, we're throwing things against the wall to see if they stick, and that's no way to run a town. All right. Well,
they need to become involved.
but I don't want to beat a dead horse. Are we going to talk about all the articles tonight, or?
The articles, as I said, don't have an explanation, so we can't get into them, what's driving it. I know there is a question on 3 articles. I believe it is Article 16, Article 19. What was the first one, Madam Moderator?
Article 13 needed to have a funding source. There was some question on Article 16, but I think that's been mutually resolved. And Article 19.
You don't know what that was about?
So there's a question on whether these are going to be dealt with or not. Mr. Chairman, do you have any input that you want to? Okay.
No, sir. Okay. No, Mr.
All right. Next item will be to set a public hearing for the warrant articles. I'm going to defer to our clerk here, who has
Dave, can I go back to earlier, the buses earlier?
Yes, can I just set a date and I'll come back to that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
We need to set a date, and it will have to be after the 21st, because I can put the ad in tomorrow to run for the following week. So we can do it on the 28th, 24th, 11th, 18th.
You split it up?
No.
No, we just have
One
one.
public hearing.
Okay.
Now, we've got the CPC coming in next week, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we want to be informed anyway, before we have a public hearing.
It's my first time, I'm sorry.
Are there any preferences between the 28th and? Yeah. Then hold public hearing on the warrant articles.
I would prefer the 28th because I won't be here, otherwise you'll have to push it back to the 12th. We'll be in the state.
So you are preferring the 28th?
I would prefer the 28th, but I've got to look at the pleasure of the committee, or either the 28th or the 12th.
You know, we've talked tonight, and we've talked before about getting explanations for various things. It seems to me that we really shouldn't have a public meeting, a public hearing, excuse me, until we have explanations from the town administrator or somebody who understands what's going on. If we were to come in here on the 28th and we don't have explanations, what's the value of a public hearing? Somebody explain that to me.
No, you're right.
So, with that said, kind of as a lead-in, I would suggest that we pin the town administrator down to come in here with the selectmen so that they understand what we're doing. Because I think you're right. You kind of hinted at it. I think you made a statement, but you talked about the selectmen. They have to understand what this process is. They vote this warrant, $91,000, what gets golden. No, it's cast in stone, and yet there seems to be some reluctance, certainly on my part, and I kind of sense on that. I won't put words in it with them. On other people's part, though, we don't have the complete picture here, not only as to the school buses, but as to other items as well. The person who should be able to explain it, or try to explain it, the town administrator. We're going to a public hearing without his input, whatever it may be, whether we agree or disagree with it, I think is fruitless.
Would we be amenable to the 12th of October?
To answer your question, I would personally, if we had a town administrator, before that time.
Well, we have 3 additional FinCom meetings.
I understand that.
I understand that the chairman has addressed that particular issue with the administration, so I would anticipate that we would have that answer before then.
Question for Kelly, as far as printing, I don't have my other calendar. If it's on the 24th, when is the last day we have to be done?
Well, that's something we have to discuss as well.
Well, in retrospect for the public hearing, that's what I'm saying. So if you want to work your way back from the 24th, what's the last day we need to be done?
Well, it depends how many weeks ahead of time we want this warrant out before town meeting. Is it 1, 2?
I don't know, is there a change to that?
Well,
14
so
days,
it would be
correct?
2, so.
Up to the charter says 14 days, right?
So I would, we're gonna have to be done pretty quick then.
That's what I'm saying. So like the 12th is even after when we're done. So we should be done with everything, the information that we need long before that is.
Well, if it needs to be out 14 days before town meeting, that would fall on a holiday, so it had.
Columbus Day.
Yeah, and it's gonna take, estimate a week to print, so we only have a few weeks to even deal with this whole thing.
So what you're telling me is the 12th is too late.
No, I mean, we can still hold it, the warrants don't necessarily, it's happened before, the warrants haven't been. I think the 12th should be okay. Yeah, that's, yeah.
That's what I'm.
For a public hearing?
Mhm.
Does anybody have objections to the public hearing on the 12th?
Well, no, I want objections, but, no, we'll get to those, never mind. No objections.
All those in favor?
We need a print date of what then? What was the print date?
I'm sorry?
What, when would we have
Well,
to print?
We would have
For
to
the
have
public
everything
hearing.
done by the 28th.
Okay.
And then it would go to the printer on the 3rd.
That's a lot.
Give them a week or so to do it, and then that would give us
September.
the 2 weeks before town meeting, if you could deliver it hopefully on the 7th. It depends on the length of this warrant too, with the explanations and votes and things like that, but
Doesn't appear to be too big.
no.
Mr. McDowell?
You know,
No, it's just 4.
we've got to set a date, let's do that, we'll talk about the other stuff later.
Okay.
I think that's probably the best way to do it.
All those in favor of setting the public hearing as of the 12th of October? Please,
You gonna make a motion?
yes, please.
So moved.
Second. All, any discussion? Hearing seen, no discussion. All those in favor signify by usual sign.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain. It becomes 8-0-0.
We're all good. No.
So it's a 12.
Thomas, I
What
think-
did I just say?
Honestly.
No.
I had a bunch of them. But they're all done.
Okay, we set that out back. Mr. Caminero, you wanted to talk about the warrant article?
I did, I'd like to go back briefly, I'm going to bring up something on the buses. Might be wrong, I'm going to bring it up anyways. Is there any other way leasing can get the money through a bond or anything to do, to then go to lease? Is there any way to raise the money on a longer term, like that, Dave?
There are ways to finance
That's what I meant.
all of this. But no matter what we do,
Mm-hmm.
at some point, once we've replaced our 20 or our 30 buses, we'll be down to an average of 5 buses a year to replace. So if you do that at 13,000, that's 65,000 and another 250,000 buy them out at the end. So now you're at a little over $300,000 a year. It's going to cost us basically into perpetuity to do the buses. So the question is, do you want to go for a long-term lease? Then what do you do next year? Go for another long-term lease? Or do you bite the bullet at 91,000, realizing that in the 4th year, you're really going to get hit big time?
All right, well, getting back to like what Dick said, you know, you're looking at $1 million or $1 million plus. I didn't know if, you know, a bond for a large sum of money would be a cheaper way just to go, that's all.
Keep in mind that you're talking about 10 buses, we're talking about over a period of time, we're gonna do this over and over again, so it's not
I
just.
understand, but what I was thinking more of the fact is, doing the bond on a long term and have the money in a certain account to keep up with it and pay, so that the bond, so you're paying a certain amount that you can swallow for a
And I
long period of time. That's all I was just thinking, if
I
something
agree,
that way.
I agree, the problem is that we need a plan, and that's where we lack right now.
Okay, just thought I'd mention it.
To help you further on that, a document we received last week on Mr. Foster's long-term debt outstanding.
Okay.
If you look at it, you'll see that there's several capital items that have long-term funding on them. And it's part of an ongoing process. Might want to review that to see how much we've got funded out on some of these things.
Good, thank you.
On this whole bus thing and total disclosure, et cetera, I'm a little annoyed, yes, that there are no explanations here, and obviously the town administrator needs to work on that. And I agree with my colleague across the table here that items D, E, and G all need some sort of you wanna say XL little box or something? I mean, I'm not real sophisticated with it, but I know many of you guys here are. And, you know, but to keep it less complicated so that somebody looking up at the screen can really understand it, that little person in the room who doesn't really get it. But what these are gonna look like 1, 2, 3 years down the line of, all right, you know, this is what this prisoner vehicle is costing us this year and next year, and that those items, we are committing ourselves for that money out there. And that includes a full picture of what this sort of plan for busing means to the town of Wareham. And I feel as though if the town administrator isn't willing to put that as part of his explanation, okay, then maybe we should insert it as part of our recommendation. All right, that there is a full picture, that people looking up at that screen, we can include a chip for them to put up on PowerPoint to show everybody, this is what that picture is gonna look like if you wanna go with this sort of plan. I get the feeling that the town administrator is treating these 10 buses like a little Band-Aid right now, and then maybe we're gonna think about another plan later on down the road. I think they should have thought about another plan a long, long time ago, and that's my biggest problem with this.
That is not a good plan.
I understand that, I understand that.
I will defend it.
No, Bonnie's right, you look at it, it's 91,000, great, that solves the buzzing problem, that's easy. It's not that much money, that's what it looks like to somebody.
Okay, do we have a
Mr. Chairman, if I may. On the whole issue of the busing, all right, the conversation has gone on probably almost perpetually for a year now. And the big debate has been, do we get an operating lease where someone else operates it, or do we buy buses, or do we lease them? All right, unfortunately, we reached a point about 3 months ago where the word was put out that we had enough buses for the school to start the school year. All right, subsequently to that, there was a get-together in the school department to say that there were severe repair problems within certain buses. Now it becomes a problem, is can you arrange and buy 7 buses in a matter of weeks? Very difficult to do. Can you lease them? That is a more viable alternative. The 7 buses, and the understanding has been repeated, or what's been said to me repeatedly, is not a solution. It is a Band-Aid. They know it's a Band-Aid. The question is, tomorrow morning, if a bus breaks down, and they have some 13 buses that last year they had spent $3,000 in hire to repair to keep them on the road, we don't have a bus for the kids. We would have to go out to a subcontractor, bring them in, etc. If we were to go to an operating lease, etc., the lease for these buses has to be so written that those leases can be assumed by whoever would come and do an operating lease. Otherwise, what we basically have done, the way leasing is right now and purchasing is right now, right, there's almost no, from an interest point of view, almost no advantage. Right? The question is, can we get them fast? Will they all be the same make and models, etc.? There was a leasing program that is being used by the town of Braintree, and we were able to get a copy basically of what their contract would be. That appeared to be a good emergency alternative. That's not the best program. But the buses start breaking down tomorrow, and I'm getting, what we sort of hear from the school department is that buses will be breaking down when winter hits. So what would it take to get us through? I've also heard this number 7 go somewhat higher, all right? Of course, my first question is, where's the money coming from? But the word I seem to consistently hear about the 7 is, we have to start somewhere. This is a Band-Aid. Now, why not bond it? Well, if you look at the rest of the capital planning schedule, which is for the next 5 years is $98 million, if you look at the amount of money that we have in our stabilization fund, you look at the amount of money that we have in our reserve fund, you look at the fact that we were told last week that we're going to be once again examined for our bonding and may receive a new rate. The bonding becomes a little bit more difficult because it may mean other items that will have to be bonded. Right? We'll have difficulty bonding those at reasonable prices. Is the lease the best way to do it? It may not be the best way to do it, but you have to make some choices. So the choices have to be made. And I'm going to say this for the record, because I hear, I'm getting hit with everything around and around and around. We're starting off next year, first off in the hole significantly. We know that. forget the buses, you put everything together in capital plan, it's $98 million, we don't have it. We have a $20 million pension, we can jump up and down continuously say, what are we gonna do if we don't have it? We can also sit back and we can say, what are we gonna do about the unfunded health care? We don't have it. Our liabilities, I mean, our town budget is $60 million, and we are probably 3 years of that revenue out on the liabilities that are not on the balance sheet. As I also go back and even talk to the school department, we have had portable classrooms for elementary children, and I'm not a social liberal, folks, you all know that, for the better part of 10 years. Really good, that's really good. So you grow up and you say, where did you go to school? I went in a portable trailer. And I said, I sure do hope that we do not go through technicals. Some renovation is going to have to be done. We are going to have to bond. So we can't bond everything, because the bond viewers, I mean, the first thing the bond wants to know, what's your operating situation, what's your political stability, what's your operating stability, what other items do you have that are out there. So yeah, I will agree 100%. We need a plan. That screaming is going on every time the people involved in capital planning get together with the administration and with the school department. That is being worked on. There has to be a plan. This should be the first piece of the plan. But I will also tell you, whether there's a plan or not, we probably, at the end of the year, will probably have to get this many buses somehow. Whether we lease them, buy them, or rent them.
Still.
Or steal them. I don't mean it as a lecture, but I think it's time we start to face the problems. And we start to understand how big our wallets are. We are already, after having rated the pension, or not the pension, the health care fund last year, and looking at what's going forward. And we have contracts coming that will be coming through that will add additional expenses. We will, and the free cash will be needed to cover those expenses. You look at the ceiling, Dick, if you've got a wallet, open it up, put the money on the table. Enough's enough. We can't keep coming back and going round and round and grabbing our tails. Nobody wants 2.5, nobody wants a debt override, and everybody wants a whole bunch of other things that all cost money. And throwing rocks at the TA isn't going to do anything, because he reports to the Board of Selectmen. We've started talking with him, and from what I've seen so far, they're at least starting, and I will quote, underline, starting to try. Nobody seems to have the courage to go to the public and state the problem. That's simple.
Mr. Paulson.
I know the sensitivity of the day-to-day versus policy. So what I'm about to suggest does in fact get into day-to-day, but it also more so than policy. I live off of Great Neck Road. When I drive down Great Neck Road in the afternoon or in the morning, school buses stop invariably about every 30 or 40 feet apart. So you have to stop behind them, obviously, and they go on another 30 or 40 feet, and they stop again. And that adds up to wear and tear on the bus. If nothing else, you'd have to say that's not terribly efficient. So I would like to see, now that's day to day. Why are you questioning that? I don't know if it's true in other parts of the town. I have no idea. But what I would like to see is a schedule that just would show by year how many stops do we have on our school bus system, and see if it's going up or it's going down. Because if it's going up, as I suspect it is, then we should say to the administration, and the school and the town administrator, why don't we revisit this? Maybe we shouldn't stop every 30 or 40 feet. Maybe we should stop every 100 feet. And these are high school kids. These are not little kiddies. So, as I say, it's day to day, but it's a bigger issue to me.
I'll refer that question to Mr. Gray, since he will be liaison with the school. See if he can give some answers on it.
All right.
Mr. McDonald, you have a comment?
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, sorry.
It's the other trouble.
I listened to Frank summarize where we are, and I would certainly agree that there is a huge problem here. If the explanation was full and it was clear what we were trying to do here, I might be convinced to go ahead with the buses, with the 7 buses, as a Band-Aid. If I was convinced that we had to do it because there was no good alternative. But the only way I would be convinced of that would be if the powers that be, and I guess it's really the selectmen, would say, all right, we and the school committee, we are going to study this situation, and by the next town meeting, we're going to have a plan as to how we're going to accomplish this in the future. I think it's got to be, and without that commitment to study the problem and come back with an overall plan, I personally could never vote for it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I understand what my colleague is saying, but the biggest problem is, if we don't lease it, we're gonna rent it. That's simple.
To the point, that was the point I made at the last capital planning meeting, the 340 selectmen. Of course, there needs to be some timeline set for the town administrator to work to, and it's in their hands. So that's the best.
I think there's got to be a commitment. I think in order for me to vote for this, I think there's got to be a commitment by the selectmen, or whoever's going to do the problem, that, hey, by the next town meeting, by gosh, we will have a plan that we're ready to submit to the town. And it's got to be a full plan, what to do. I think just to vote on 7 and then have another go-around in another year, I just cannot vote for it.
Jonathan, I fully agree. The problem is that we also have to make clear that we do not buy, we do not lease, we will have to rent. There will be an operating expense. It will have to be met. We have no choice. Bus routes are the bus routes. They, you know, if they're going to be so long, they're going to basically under state guidelines, etc. Just let's not say it's great to vote against something and think that there has to be, or there can be no alternative. We either rent or repair, and one bus last year cost $13,000 to repair. This is a matter of the record presented at the school committee. There's a list of 13 buses, emailed after the most recent meeting, previous meeting. All right, when you look at it, they can post their minutes. It's available, but that's my only point by colleagues would be that we have to make clear that this is one of the alternatives. We can't agree with this alternative. We feel that a rental or maybe a used bus purchase or something. We have to say that we understand there'll be other requirements or needs that will have to be met through the procurement process. Because at that time there'll be no town meeting.
I don't disagree that it's probably going to end up being a cheaper plan than repairing stuff breaking down. But my point was, I mean, I fully agree with Mr. Gray that it has to be full disclosure at town meeting as to whether this is a plan, a long-term plan, or if this is abandoned. This is temporary. This is to solve a problem for now, and that they are going to work on either an alternative or, you know, getting ourselves into a huge expense of buying all the buses. That to me is what's really important. Whether that comes out in his explanation or whatever, he needs to be completely transparent with everybody that this is just a temporary fix.
Okay, I'm going to bring the conversation up on this particular point. Everybody's spoken at least 2, maybe 3 times. We've spoken enough. I will make this point to you. Those of you who feel, as Mr. Gray does, in terms of must be a long-term solution, I would suggest that we vote and we write our opinion. And if the opinion is not in the direction that you feel is the correct direction to go, but you would want to put a dissenting opinion from either as a majority or a minority report, however this goes. And that is the perfect place to put it, because it will be put right before the citizens of the town.
I agree.
Okay. Financial reports. Again, we have no financial reports. However,
Before you go on, I did send an email out today, all right, to the town administrator admonishing, and the board of selectmen admonishing them for issuing the warrant without explanations, and that they in fact were wasting 7 days of our time. And that I anticipate, or I would expect, that at the next meeting, or actually prior to that, we will have received the full explanations.
thank you.
It's my understanding that will be done.
I don't have a date on the 2010 audit to be completed. Mr. McDonald?
Well, now that we're into the rainbow and sunshine, that we've just been through. I took the notes from last meeting, and it was my understanding from the last meeting that we would be receiving financial information from 2010, hopefully before town meeting. Was that the sentiment that was expressed?
He said he hoped we'd have.
Okay, well, let me tell you what, and that was on September 7th. On August 31st, and I'm going to put this in the record, the town administrator fired off a letter to Beth Jepson, Director of Finance for the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development, with that address. Please be advised, the independent audit firm of Powers & Sullivan is working to complete the town of Wareham's audit for FY10, and we respectfully request additional time to file the town of Wareham's audit. The anticipated date of completion is December 31st, 2011. Now, last I checked, October comes before December. Now, I don't know what to say, because all the discussions we just had about all these articles, if we don't know what free cash is, if we have no idea where our numbers are, what are we exactly voting on? And that's a problem for me. We need something to go by. We just can't go in there blind, and we're talking about financial articles, we're talking about other articles that have financial impact. And a week before we heard that, a week before he came and sat in here and told us he hoped to have it done, he'd already told somebody December 31st. And I have a problem with that. I don't know if anybody else does, but I find that very, very problematic for us. We need to be able to sit on stage and tell people things and have a little bit of detail behind us in order to make them work.
You, Dave, he did mention that the date that they told him was probably December 31st, and he said he had hoped to have it long before that. But he mentioned that date here.
I never heard him mention December 31st.
He mentioned December 31st, and he said that he would hope, that's what they told him would be the absolute latest date, and he said he had hoped to have it a lot sooner than that. That's what I remembered.
I don't remember that, and I don't see that anywhere in the notes.
2010.
I went back through the notes. And then again, we're still talking about 2010, not 2011. Sorry, 3 years. We're talking about a 2010 audit, not a 2011
Right.
audit. And so, again, I never go to a meeting with our banks or any of the other people we deal with unless I have my numbers in line, because I certainly don't want to embarrass myself, and I certainly don't want to embarrass my company. And I'm real concerned with this, because I don't remember picking up anything about it December 31st. But that doesn't work as far as town meeting goes. I'll leave it at that for now.
The point is taken. Anyone else wishes to have a discussion?
Oh, no, so I would say December 31st date did come up, and it was mentioned, and that's why we wrote the letter to the Board of Selectmen insisting that they go to Powers and Sullivan and expedite. Now, I'm not sure how that letter fits into that series of events, because it all pretty much occurred around the same time. But he did say December 31, and this committee went crazy, all right, passed the motion to write a letter to the selectmen and forwarded it. And I know the selectmen have been in communication with Powers and Sullivan. We're still awaiting that answer as to what the actual dates will be. Right, I fully agree with you, or I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I fully agree with my colleague. All right, the December 31st date is just unacceptable. We need a number much sooner. I would also note that the articles are written to raise appropriate borrow or transfer. And I think it's been acknowledged, maybe not in front of this committee, but in front of others, right, that free cash might be questionable as a source. It might have to go to bonding.
I will give this to,
I'll send this down.
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
I'll give this to clerk, conclusion of the minutes, and suggest that we put it, since this will come up again, next meeting, hopefully we'll be here, at that point, that discussion can be had where we are within.
If we brought up December 31st, that's fine. I just, I would like to see our numbers before we sit up there.
It's okay. You remember the big decision? I mean, we were all like crazy over that number.
I remember, well, the original number, but I believe he said, and I've got the notes from last week, that he would hope to have it to us 2 weeks before town meeting. So that's not the same as saying December 31st. I know that was a previous number, but it's not what was said last week.
Unless there's any objection, I shall close financial reports and we will move down to any other business. Seeing Paulson, you have to have this overtime business put on the agenda, is that correct? That is correct. Would you care to speak to the issue?
Well, I'm not the one who, I think it's fairly clear. I commented on this last week. I won't bore you with commenting on it again. I think we, from my standpoint at least, I would hope the committee, that we would try to get a handle on overtime costs for various departments. And that cut me off very appropriately. And anyway, the point that I would make is that we draw comparisons to other departments, not just other departments within the town, but other police departments, other public safety departments, to see what their costs are compared to our costs, to see if we're high or low, and how we stack up. That's how you do it in business. You get your IBM, you look at Dell, you look at your Packard, you see how you're doing your quote competition. We tend not to do that. We'll give it a figure, and this is it. I had a problem with that for years, and I still do.
Okay.
So, does anybody, I say these things, and we sit here and we talk about them, but does anybody agree with it or disagree? I really don't care. I do care, but I'd like to get some feeling from my colleagues here. Should we be getting this kind of information?
I will recognize Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, and through you, to my colleague across the table. I think some of these would be useful. The problem is, we're not even in a position to get numbers yet. So, I would like to see comparisons for other towns, but I'm not sure that I want to see them in the amount of detail that you're looking at. I mean, as far as overtime, to the specific degree of overtime that you're looking at, but I would like to see some comparisons, at least in overall, an aggregate of comparisons. That would be okay. But to the degree that we're looking at, I'm not sure from a time standpoint that it would have as much value in the detail you're looking for. But I do believe there are some comparisons that need to be had.
Anyone else have some comments?
I would also agree that these comparisons are valuable, but we value in the budgetary process. Right now, it would divert valuable resource. We're trying to get the audits done, we're trying to get annual reports off the ground. There's a whole number of other things that we're tackling at this point. And I would suggest that, yes, we should make sure, if nothing else, through our public safety liaison, we talk to the department heads when it comes budget time. This is the type of information we'd like to see when we meet with them. So, make them sensitive to the issue and say, look, it's going to make the whole budget process for you easier if in fact you were to discuss these things. If we find that there is resistance from the department head through the liaison suggestion, right, then we bring it up as a committee issue and we just go through the selectmen and make it part of the budget process. But to do it today, we don't have, I have to say, we don't have the manpower. Nobody there to do it, let's be honest.
To answer the point, I'm intimately familiar with that liaison to the police department.
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be meeting with the police and maintenance department in regards to capital planning next week. I did not get their inputs on the 1st of September. I will make this part of my discussion. That's all I hear Mr. McDonald's point, and I hear your point. Anything other under business?
Oh, wait a second, the water pollution control facility, one of my pet subjects, which is on the agenda here. May I speak to that for just a
You may,
moment?
Mr. Wilson.
We've got a $7 million, $8 million business, right? And since I've been here on this committee, we've received no report, nothing, no income statement, no cash flow statement, no balance sheet, absolutely nothing. To me, that's, again, I hesitate to continue to use the word unacceptable. To me, that's unacceptable. We just can't keep going on like this. The town deserves, we deserve, and the town deserves an explanation as to why we're not getting these reports. I'm not asking for them on a daily basis. Quarterly would be fine, but they're not that hard to do. They could be done. Again, you can disagree with me if you want, or agree. I hope you agree, but we should do something, in my opinion, we should do something to mandate that we get that kind of financial information.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a handle on when we are going to get some financial reports out of the accounting system? Expenditures versus budget? I'm not trying to pin you hard, it's a simple yes or no.
Well,
Or I don't know.
Keystone's Cops again. When I opened my email just before I came here, I had an email that said, I believe I had found the format, attached please find July 2011. Unfortunately, forgot to attach it. So, as soon as I have it, I will pass it out. Right? I did talk to the town administrator today. I did remind him that on the articles now, that we have a request for 2 pieces of equipment, which are capital items, which appear to be most appropriately paid for by the enterprise fund. And that we could not make any presentation to the town meeting unless we were able to, if nothing else, distinguish between restricted and unrestricted retained earnings, which meant we had to have financial reports. So he understands that we will not vote on this until such time, or vote to table it. I did discuss that with him.
Last meeting, we had a question of what has to be incorporated into the Zoom meeting and what has to go out onto the website. Given to understand, we passed a motion for the chairman to take action. That he called the Attorney General and was referred to the Secretary of State's office. My understanding is that we are not required to do that. If there's a document that's passed around or becomes part of what's going on in FinCom, anyone who wishes to request that can request that, and we can give that to them within 10 days. The fact that we are trying to put things to clerk of the finance committee, Kelly, so that she can incorporate it in the minutes of the meeting, exceeds what the state expects at this point. We are beyond their expectations in doing that. So that is the answer on that. I would suggest that I'd like to see all things funnel through the chairman, but based on past history, that's not always possible. So if we are going to say that I made a phone call, I would like to know what department, what date, what time, and specifically who you talked to. Because that certainly makes it easier if at a later time we have to go back to the same individual. So I'm just asking that when we bring these things up, we have the courtesy to give the other members, and particularly the chairman, a trail so that we can follow through if appropriate. Is there anything, oh yes, sorry. We do have an opportunity tomorrow night to attend a conflict of interest in open meeting law. Actually, for those of you who've never done it, it really should be a high priority for you. You have to, at some point, have to do that. All of us have to take the state ethics exam, which just comes up every 2 years, and print out your diploma and give it to the town clerk so she can update her records. Mr. Gregg.
I took mine a year ago. Do I have to take it again?
It's every 2 years, I believe. But
It's like a flu shot every.
It's biennial, so if Mr. Gray has taken it this last year, you wouldn't have to do it this year, but last year.
do we get it?
No.
There is a strong probability that I will not be in attendance tomorrow night. And then I'll have to look at when they have a makeup on that day.
So yeah, meeting is not required, test it.
I know you'll.
No, the meeting is tomorrow night, the test is online, you're supposed to read it, do the case law, get the certificate, and once you have the certificate,
Do I have to do both?
No.
bring it to the town clerk.
We urge you to do both.
I did it last year, but I couldn't print it out because my printer was down, and I can't do it now either.
I would urge you to do both, and I'll tell you why.
Can I
Because of the
email it?
he referenced the conversation to me that I had with the Attorney General's office and the Secretary of State's office. And there's been a lot of confusion on things, and they're becoming very, very specific as to what is and isn't violation. I would be glad to go over some of that later in this meeting, so that everybody has an understanding of what is a public document and what is a violation of the open meeting law, particularly when it comes to email, which seems to be their hot issue right now. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
If I took this when I was with the library board, does it doesn't count the same? I mean, obviously, we don't take a different test.
It's the same, it's the same.
I mean, obviously, we don't take a different test.
That's why you may have trouble understanding that we are all considered employees of the town
Oh, boy.
for the purpose of taking these examinations.
Okay.
Okay, I've covered that.
No, I did it.
Nobody's asking
I
me
actually, I had to save it into my files because my printer was down. It's in my file, want it again? What if I do it this year, can I just save it into the desktop and then email it to her?
Text it to her, she can pull it up on her phone.
My recommendation to you, hand the piece of paper.
I told you my printer's broken.
Perhaps you could find someone's computer that has a printer that works.
Okay.
And you believe the town clerk monitors this, David?
Oh, they do.
She has to.
They actually do, because when I was reappointed, they do, when I take the exam, had all my records complete, so. Now, I have received a note regarding, the finance committee meetings that are projected to be shown on local TV on Saturday at 7 p.m. and Monday at 7 p.m. And then on the government channels, which is 29, and then Verizon, which is 95. Now, the good news, or the bad news, as you wish to take it, is that for Saturday, we'll be competing probably against college football. And Monday night, we'll be competing against professional football. And I think even Barack Obama had to give some ground last week on that. So we are scheduled to be on TV. I don't know how often he's doing this, but we have that. Okay. Try to finish this up. I know all of you getting anxious. Let's see. Liaison reports.
Go for it.
Please.
I'm just talking to them. I actually had my first meeting with the library director, the chairman of the board of library trustees, I believe, is, I don't know if Mark is going to be coming or not. He has been notified. And I believe the vice chair from that committee, we're going to sit down and have a discussion about what we can do for each other, and as far as how I can help them from the finance committee standpoint and what they can provide me. And that's one. And then as far as the pollution control facility, I have a meeting at 9:30 on Saturday morning, if you'd like to attend, with Guy Cantina. I think I copied you. Probably. I'm not getting used to our town email. It's a little iffy.
The feedback from capital planning. Carl went to Lois at our capital planning meeting, and she spoke on the Friends of the Wareham Library and what they were trying to do, and discuss that previously. After that conversation, some of us on capital planning felt that a meeting with capital planning, because they have a $50,000 request, and they had 2 items from the previous year, which they didn't even put into the request, so I kind of kicked that back up. And Friends of the Library and the Director of the Library, the town administrator needs to have a meeting, so everybody understands what's going on. The way we're operating right now is not acceptable, because the town is funding the library. We have repairs that have to be met. The library directors, representative, I can't remember the name, came in and walked into a real.
Mike Flaherty, the board, the chairman.
He walked into where was last year's inputs, and he did not have answers for. I give him this much. He was trying very much to get his library thing done, doing it the correct way, but there were 2 key items that were missing. And we felt that a meeting was in order with the community, so that one, capital planning could understand, town administrator could understand, and maybe the director, the board chairman, and the Friends could help us understand some of the issues that are there.
I believe that is on the agenda. I don't really want to talk about it until after we meet, but I believe that's on the agenda, because that was one of those where they said, sure, we'd like to meet. By the way, and I was like, oh, we can talk about that later. But I think there are some, it's a much bigger pie than people realize.
Precisely. I think the town administrators can have some input to that in terms of what he's looking for. Whether he gets it or not, that's another sidebar issue. Any other committee report, liaison reports? Just board.
I just was wondering, maybe we could recap the procedure, because I thought as part of my liaison duties, I was supposed to ask the town accountant, which we don't have, which would now be in charge by the town administrators, information regarding the revolving accounts. But my request to him was to see the FinCom chair. So I just want to make sure I'm on the same page regarding these requests and liaison duties.
Mr. Chairman, our procedure for any information that we request right now, because the problems that we've had in the past in getting the information, is that we actually come to a motion here in the committee and say these are the items that we would like to have. Right, we so direct the chairman who writes the letter, right, the committee approves the letter goes to the board of selectmen. The board of selectmen then, all right, go to the town administrator, they have the authority to advise it through him that the department head needs to produce that material, right, and then they respond to us. I think we're on our 4th instance of that, and they responded in all 4 instances. Right, where in the past, if we went to the town administrator, we did have some problems, right, communications or otherwise. So that's basically what it's coming down to. You can still meet with the department head, introduce yourself, or you can talk to someone and say, look, this is where we're going to be going. You might even advise them this is the request we're probably going to be making. The request itself has to officially follow those lines. And basically, the response that we receive is not from the department head, it's not from the town administrator, it's from the board of selectmen. Okay? And they've been very, very responsive so far.
Okay. No, I just wanted to
I
be
apologize
on the
for
same
we
page.
haven't had a chance to really sit and talk about that. And I think revolving accounts will become very important in April, in the next time budget.
Any other,
Planning board meeting on, regarding the BDMAP solar panel, seems to be going, that looks like a go, and that'll bring in up $35,000 revenue for the town. Coming up quickly, the solar panel that ADMA piece is going to put up by a charge pond. That was on the agenda last week.
is there anything to touch base with, Mr. Cantana at the water treatment facility? I understand he's got some 35 acres that he cannot utilize at this point because of previous issues, but he was looking to put in some solar panels there, and I don't know whether that.
This was, well, ADMA piece has already got one, already permitted for the buildings over there, Rose thing, that's already under construction. This is a new one that they were just looking at. And there's no, one of the issues that was brought up, I guess there's no bylaws in the town for solar, which I guess some will be written very quickly, but there isn't any right at the moment. But the big issue that people had who lived in that area was that, I guess you're supposed to notify everyone for the abutters, and ADA Makepeace brought up the issue is that they are the only abutters to where they're building. So there was no, you know, the people weren't by rights, but it was all good. It's gonna go through. It's just gonna be revenue for the town.
Capital plan met last week. I discussed previously a question of Article 1. We have not yet voted that. We did have a healthy discussion regarding that article. Recap the article where the inputs from the school, from the library, we're missing 2. I have all the inputs for current 5-year inputting, except for the police department and the police department. And I've asked through the financial analyst, Derek, works outside the town administrator's office, that I wanted to meet with him this week, maybe next week, get that information, because the one with the maintenance department now involves the vehicles, involves the town buildings. So I've also additionally requested the computer listing of all of our real vehicles and all of our the insured real vehicles and all of our insured buildings or assets that we insure. The listing is absolutely amazing. I put it into a spreadsheet last year. So I need to sit with Mr. Gifford to discuss the situation on some of these buildings. For some of them are basically in tough shaped salt shed up behind the municipal maintenance area. I'd almost be afraid to drive in there with a fork truck, whether to deliver some salt or to remove some salt. It's in full shape. I'll work on that next week and see what I can close with. Our next capital planning meeting is today is the 14th. Oh, should be looking at 20.
You're shaking my faith.
We guys will leave our meeting on 23rd, no, the 22nd, at 9 to 11:30, room 23, Town Hall. Take the elevator to the third floor, take the right. Where the old planning office used to be.
Oh, that side?
Yeah, but, yeah, if you get 9 to, well, we say 9 to 11, but sometimes you just can't finish it up at that time. And if it's too crowded, then we move downstairs to the cafeteria. We just post a sign that we move to the cafeteria.
What day is that again, David?
22nd.
22nd.
At what time?
9 to 11. Can't hold that.
Town screening of it.
The town administrator was the authority and responsibility to hire the town accountant. Asked the screening committee to choose 3 candidates which the committee felt were competent and recommend them to him. Last Thursday, the screening committee met and interviewed 7 individuals. We had received, I guess, a total of 9 resumes, of which 1 person withdrew and 1 person did not show up. Of the 7 who we interviewed, we recommended 2 to the town administrator. We did not recommend 3 because we didn't think there were 3 competent people to take the job. The 2 that we recommended were not ideal in some ways, but appeared in every way, both background and in the interviews, as being sharp, very much well versed in accounting, and have the general knowledge of accounting that we wanted. What they didn't have was they did not have municipal experience. 1, and 2, they did not have experience in the accounting system that we have. They did have experience with large systems. They had handled systems of that sort, done all the work that would be necessary in a larger organization. And the committee felt were people who would do well in the job. Question comes, were there anybody was there anybody who had municipal experience? And the answer was yes. There were 2 resumes of people who did, one of which was the person who did not show up and who did not answer phone calls, etc. The other one had I don't think I should go into too much detail, but had a pretty good looking resume, but it didn't hold up. And so it was the committee's feeling that we definitely did not want that person. I think the 2 people would certainly bring a lot of ability into the town. And I think that they can certainly learn the municipal part of it rapidly enough to be effective from the get-go. And so that I was, quite frankly, I can speak for myself and I think for the rest of the committee, I was concerned that we might not get applicants who were able and competent to do the job. I think we did find 2 people who would do the job, but I think there was some disagreement among the committee as to which of the 2 would do it best. But I think all members of the committee felt that both persons could do the job.
Okay. Question? Mr. Paulson? Is that a CPA?
Yes, one is a CPA. The other one does not have the title, but he certainly has the background, education, and experience to warrant it, but he did not work for an auditor.
New business, unanticipated items?
I will move so everybody can, sure everybody can hear it. The reason why the item is not on the agenda is I wasn't sure that I was going to be here tonight. I apologize for the last 5 days. And I will try to catch up. But I did contact the Attorney General's office in regards to the open meeting law. The first question that came up was, as we said, was whether or not anything had to be posted electronically. There is nothing under the open meeting law that requires anything to be posted electronically. It does not have to be. However, that does not mean that things that are that exist electronically are not subject to the open meeting law. My understanding is they've reached the point. Again, this is the interpretation of the person that I'm talking to, and I will bring his name and position. He's out of the Boston office. If I send you a document and attach this, everything's fine. I send you a document and say, I think this is interesting, you should look at it. You have now violated the open meeting law. Right? Because it is an opinion, since it's an opinion, it's a matter of deliberation. It does not make any difference if it's sent out individually or it's sent out as a group. We discussed the fact that we have a group website and that communications to the committee are supposed to go through that website. They said that was an outstanding idea and complimented us on even coming up with the idea. And they referred me as far as, well, the question was, what's a public document? They would not state anything in a public document. It's not their realm. They don't deal with it. All they deal with is the open meeting law. However, they put me in touch with a fellow gentleman by the name of Don White, who was the attorney on duty for the Secretary of State's office. Public document is anything that is created or received. Anything that is an email that's created and mailed is a public document. Both said the same thing. Anything that we have that's associated with our meetings or is created in any form that in our work, right, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, which means we have to provide a copy of it within 10 days. That's simple. However, in our minutes, we do not have to have the actual correspondence letter, document, or whatever. We need merely reference it. All right, and both felt that the fact that we were going to start attaching it to our minutes, et cetera, was an outstanding idea. As I said, great transparency, we have no problem with that. I suspect we'll hear some of this tomorrow night, again, when it will come up. Again, I will say that, we've said this before in the committee, and I hope we're all doing it, if we're going to communicate as a committee, either individually or as a group, we have the town website. You get onto it using a browser, doesn't affect your personal email or whatever. All right, you should go through that step. And then at that point, we look very covered. But they were very specific and very detailed, very friendly, very easy to talk to. But I've also found, as I said, very amazing. They were very careful not to step on each other's toes. That's a public document, that's open meeting law. And I've heard that several times during the conversations. So I don't know if anyone else has any questions there. I would put on the agenda, but I did make the call as the committee directed me, and that was the result of it. I will bring you the name of both people that I talked to. Unfortunately, though, it seems to be that we call the next guy, changes it, he has a slightly different opinion. But these people seem to be pretty authoritative.
I guess we'll have to deal with it one at a time.
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Chairman?
Meetings. All right, that's your next item.
I have the next four scheduled.
Pardon?
I have the next four scheduled. Actually, I count tomorrow night. But I have the next four scheduled is 9:21, because we have the CPC coming in, 9:28, 10:05, and then at 10:12, we have the public hearing.
I think there's a potential for a meeting between the 21st and the 28th. And that would be my question to everybody, if we have to have. I mean, I'll do everything in my power to avoid it. I am back. I will be in touch with them. I've already been in touch with them this afternoon, barreling down 495. All right, I will try to get explanations as fast as possible. Looking over the articles, I think we could move, with the exception of Article 1, I think we could move very quickly through a number of them. I will invite the Clean Water Committee, I think, and the Affordable Housing, whoever we were on those two particular articles. Again, we've talked about this. We have no obligation to write those up. So it's a matter of just hearing and deciding how we want to recommend on it. I do understand one of them is controversial, maybe a suggestion to table it based on town council. So I'll ask the administration to get us that opinion as well, so that we can make that decision informed. But if we had to meet between the 21st and the 28th, it sort of throws us to a Friday or a Saturday or a Monday. What would people rather do? We may have to do it. I mean,
Are you referring to the one with Howard and Sullivan and Selectmen?
no, I'm talking about if we're going to get through all the articles and have all the votes done by the 28th, which are to ensure, I mean, I'd like to sort of tentatively have a date in mind to say, okay, fine, we didn't make enough progress with CPC next week, et cetera. You know, there are some housekeeping stuff here. If we have to have another quick meeting, again, I would take whatever we had, and we would limit the agenda that night to whatever we had the explanations for, et cetera. I will extend invitations for next week to, as I said, those parties that are not the Board of Selectmen that are making requests, et cetera, so we get those out of the way. Again, I apologize, I lost 5 days.
Just for you, do you have any idea, I know we went through last town meeting about this, that the Board of Selectmen wanted our votes before theirs. Any word on that, please?
I think we may need to address the selectmen about that, and also about our deadline of when this is going to the printer. The past few town meetings, they requested extra time so their votes can be put into the warrant, which goes past our deadline for the printer. So that's a good question, and I think we're gonna have to address that. Because I'm asked
Well, we
on the fly many times after we've set the deadline, can you just wait? Can you wait a day or two?
Well, the wait time has already been used. Okay, if the articles arrive tonight without explanation, we lost a whole day now and 6 days of going through, writing our explanations and answers, et cetera. So that will be my answer to the Board of Selectmen. All right,
I think they need
if
to
had
know
submitted-
though what our
I'm not
deadline
taking
is.
offense with you, by the way.
No, no,
But
no,
that's
no.
gonna be, I understand your problem, because I know that they wanna do everything at the last minute, and so if we're saying that we'll meet on the 28th, they'll probably wanna have some kind of meeting after the 28th. They can vote on the articles before we do.
I know, but they
But they,
insisted on knowing
yeah,
ours before
last
they
year,
did.
yeah, last
Pardon?
year. they
Last
did it.
year, they insisted on having our votes before doing
Then
their
I
votes.
should have, Bonnie, you know me, I better just flat out sit there and say, you would have had one a week ago.
Right.
If you had given us the explanations, we probably would have gone through them that Wednesday night with the exceptions for ones for which dollar amounts weren't there. We were prepared to go, and the explanations weren't there. What do you want from us?
Okay, that was.
Well, as long as you don't throw.
Wait, unless you're gonna go windy, I'll go windy.
No, I just want to make sure we don't.
I recognize Mr. Paul.
Sorry.
The audit of 2010 has a number associated with it. That number is $919,000. Somehow or other, we don't seem to discuss that. I'm not saying we avoid it, but we kind of skirt around the issue. At town meeting, it's going to come up as an issue. It should come up as an issue. And I think that we as a committee should exert whatever influence, whatever authority we have to get to the bottom of this. I mean, it came up to some extent today with Larry's comment in the letter. But I personally feel that that's really something that we should be very affirmative on in terms of getting an answer. Even if the suspicion the answer is going to be a non-answer, but at least that we're out there trying. Because we're going to have our heads handed to this, I think. And on town meeting floor, if we don't indicate to the town that we really tried on this and we haven't gotten any place.
Not much is gonna happen to the 2010 audit. That's the whole hang-up. It isn't a question of 919 or the 723. It's a question of what is the actual free cash amount? And we can't get there without that audit. I agree with you, Cut, that this is a stalking horse, but it's there. Mr. Merrill?
That 919,000 is part of that audit. And that's like, so, well, the results of that audit, we've already put into a letter that we've asked for that before town meeting, so basically really have covered ourselves. I mean, I know what you're saying, Dick, but we have requested it, what more can we do? Without it, there's no answer.
Okay. I'll cover the next meetings. We have CPC in next week, 21st. Tentatively 28, 10-5, and then a public hearing. Did you want a?
28 and 10, 5, I'm sorry, did you say that?
9/28, 10-5, 10.
Okay, and then 10, 5, okay.
Did you want to go further with your question? No?
Yeah, I would like to get a date in between the 21st and the 28th if necessary, and I'll do everything in my power not to schedule it. And remember, I have to have 48 hours to post the meeting.
Does anyone
And I
have
promise to keep it quick.
Preferences to dates to meet?
I was gonna say not Saturday.
Purpose of that meeting, I'm sorry, between you did, finish up the warrant articles the best as we can.
We will have to finish by the 28th. If I get through the first night, we've only done 4 or 5 articles, then we're gonna need to meet again to get through even the 19 or 20.
You still have to write it, Dick, and then.
Right.
You gotta put it together.
There are discussions to be held, et cetera, so.
My personal preference is Thursday, the 22nd, capital plan, we will have that morning. I should be able to give you a report on warrant article 1. As far as my next window of opportunity, is the 27th. So I'm going 23, 24, 25.
I know it's fine for me, what about the rest of the committee? I can post the 21st and the 22nd, if we don't need it, we can always cancel. All right? The advantage of the 22nd is if we're gonna do a real problem in one particular article, we always have the 27th and 28th to solve that. Does the 22nd fit for everyone?
All right, we'll add to the 22nd of September, 6:30. Here.
Well, we have to find another one,
Okay.
but we'll figure that out. This may not be available that night, but we'll find one.
You'll post that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm not yet
20.
time, but I will entertain the motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Can't be discussed. Cannot be debated.
What's going on?